and welcome back to the hottest marriage show in its second to last episode. It is I, John D. N, aka
Do.
And Too Much Podcast, rescripting the culture one conversation at a time. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. Got 2 weeks of school left. Day graduates next week. Dallas has his license. I'm interested in possibly changing positions for next school year. A lot of things are coming to an end, but it seems like new opportunities are opening for each and every one of us.
Agreed. Not me, though.
Why would you say that? You're the one that's keeping it all together. You're the glue.
You know, I want some new stuff for me, too. I want new.
You don't, though, because
No.
you say you like what you have.
Okay, point taken.
Like typically when people want anything new, they're doing something to change it. But you, so I don't know. Like, do you really want something new?
Maybe not. Maybe not. I'm good with what I got.
So were you trying to deceive me? You wanted to feel like you wanted to.
I just was feeling left out. But
I told you were the glue. None of us get any of these things without you.
Oh my gosh, this is true because I was riding in the car during Dallas's license test. That was stressful. I'm in the midst of planning days, open house.
Everything.
Yeah, that's something else. But you've been flying and riding all on your own.
No, I can't say that because I think because you give me a joy when I get off work, it's easier for me to go a little more than 100% at work.
That's so lovely.
Yeah, like if you didn't look forward to coming home, how can you really enjoy work? Because then you're going to start dreading that you got to go home. But I enjoy coming home. I really do.
Ask him if he enjoys digging these holes in the yard.
I do because it has to get done.
It does have to get done.
And I feel like we did a lot today.
We did.
Yeah. So it'll look like what we want because we're investing in what we want it to look like. So it's going to benefit us to be able to say, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting a new office. That's my change.
Look at that.
I'm going to enjoy my new office. Coming around now, I don't do this very often, but I'm going to take the lead today.
You're going to what?
Take the lead. So I had taken a trip recently with my nephew, not so recently, but recently I took a trip with my nephew and he was like, there's something I wanted to ask you if you guys could talk about. And the topic was, how are you supposed to know how to be a husband when you haven't had a husband in the house, or how to be a wife when your mom never, operated on a wife's level? How are you supposed to know what you're supposed to look for in a wife, what you're supposed to look for in a husband if you've never seen it? How do you know how to be one if you've never seen it?
That's interesting. I think that's an awesome question to ask at such a young age, because I think when I was his age, I already knew what it was. So
you already knew what was?
What a husband and a wife was. Like when you think you know something, like you're clouded. To me, being open-minded of what it looks like, he's open to changing. Like I was crippling myself by saying that I already knew what it was.
Okay.
When you, like I said, if you already know what it looked like, it's hard to change unless you know that it doesn't work. I wish I was that open-minded, but with the journey that we've had to get to this point, I think it could look a lot of ways. But the way that people want to feel, it's going to take a work, like an intentional work, to ask questions of people that maybe look like what he thinks is supposed to look like. Reading about marriages, people who think that they have an idea of what it could look like. I think their opinion is important, because if they were married for so long and you write a book, they can tell you what worked. It's not like in the beginning, like, you can't do this. Like, what can you do though that's going to work in all relationships? So I think if asking people, reading up on it, now podcasts, you can run across so many different marriages, young, seasoned to very old, and you can just get their experiences and listen, take notes. Like this is one thing that I can say. I think if you're going to get in a relationship, you should definitely vet your person, but you should go into it with the expectation that you have to work on something in the relationship every single day. Because when it becomes a part of your routine, I think it changes how you feel. It doesn't feel like this, like earlier you just was like, ask him how he's feeling about digging these holes. I'm cool with it because to me, that's working on our relationship. Like it has to get done, and doing it with you makes me feel like earning my keep to say that I help contribute to making the house feel. I didn't just say. I mean, you didn't just do it all, you know. So I think that's where you can really start, because when you think you know, you kind of like limit your responses.
Yeah. I remember in our younger years, John was definitely, he knew what he knew. He swore he knew everything up and down. And it was very difficult to tell him otherwise. So I understand what you mean when you're saying the flexibility. Being open minded to it now means that you don't have any walls up. It's nothing that's going to slow you down. I'm with you on that. Also agree. You know, one of the things that was interesting when we were younger, I remember when we got married, you said, I need to be around married men if I'm going to be married, because, you know, I need to be around other people who are kind of at the same part of life as I am. Funny enough, what John really chose to do is keep talking marriage up to his current single friends. Y'all need to be getting married. Y'all need to be getting married. And all of a sudden, everybody started in the next few years, they were getting married. But I think being around, when you said being around people who look like what they have looks like what you want, that's a really, really good start. Also, knowing that nothing is perfect. So even if, like, there was a couple we used to spend time with in Abu Dhabi, and I used to tell John all the time, they are absolutely best friends. Like, we had a karaoke pajama night one time. Them mugs did a whole routine together off of a song. And I thought that was the livest thing ever. Now, to this day, I don't know of any, I've never seen anything like where they've gone off on each other, or they've like been in the same room and given a silent treatment, or they're bit nothing like that. It's always like they're hanging out with their friend. And I really, really loved spending time with them as a couple, because it it almost rubs off on you. And even when we would separate, because a lot of the times the men would go in one area and the women would be in another area. But when we were all together, it was always such a great, it was contagious. And I need those kinds of relationships around, because we weren't here yet, but I could see what it could be. And it made me hopeful, and it made me feel like, okay, like it's possible to be like that. I want to be like that. So, but we were also around other relationships where I was like, I don't want that. We would go home all through the course of our marriage. We would go home and I'd be like, did you see that? Like, I couldn't even imagine. And then it would bring up conversations where he would be like, well, I understand this, that, and then I'm like, I don't really know about that. And it brought up a lot of conversations. So being around other married, I think, is really great. Being around married people that you want what they have is even better. But I think the other thing is asking them how they got there, because they give really great information, but it takes time. Like, if somebody were to ask me about John and I now, I probably could answer a lot faster because we talk so much about it on here. But for other people, when they've just been living this life, they built this relationship and it's second nature now. When you ask them, it takes a minute for them to think of, like, what do you mean? How did we get here? That's my homie, right? So I wholeheartedly feel like that. I don't know about, like, there are definitely a lot of marriage podcasts out here. Some I think are really nice. I love the relationship. That there are other things that I'm like, I don't want that. I guess that's really what it is. It's like looking around and being like, okay, I like that. I don't like that. Now, how do I get there? And so we're not going to see everything at home. We're not going to see what it's supposed to look like. Like, the examples of husbands that I had were so mixed growing up. I had my dad, who grew up with no dad, and well, his dad was in the house, but not really. You know how you can have a parent that's present, but not really present. So then I had my stepfather, who was very present. I had cousins who had dads and stepdads, my uncles. When I look at the wide variety of men, I'll be honest with you and say, as a young man who's interested in being married, probably the examples of husbands that were not really like husbands probably looked the most fun. But the husbands that were like fully dedicated to their family, it was so intentional, and so, like, it wasn't no playing around. Like, I remember my mom told me, she said, what your dad did learn how to, like, as far as taking care of a household, what should or should what he has to handle to keep our house going along, he learned that from my uncle. And my uncle, he's very like, he doesn't look fun. He's very like stone face up in this mug, but he's very intentional about taking care of his wife and his kids. And my dad did learn a little bit from him. Wasn't enough, but
I mean, that was on the fly.
it was. But my brothers learned a lot. I learned a lot. It wasn't everything I needed to learn, though. It wasn't everything I needed to learn. And so that's where the other relationships really fell in for me to understand what is a husband really supposed to look like. And I really didn't, in the beginning, I was so caught up in like 3 bullet points that John was checking them boxes that the other stuff to me seemed secondary, but they really should have been primary. And
Like, what do you mean should have been primaries, just so that they could understand?
so John was primarily raised by his dad. His mom worked a lot and his dad was like at home all the time. So in my head, I was like, yes, he's been raised by his dad. His dad was doing everything. So his dad raised him the way my mom raised me. And that was a checkbox. John had a degree. That was a checkbox. He was cute. That was a checkbox. You know what I mean? The conversations were always good with you. Though that meant that I was never really going to be bored. But I didn't think about when it came to running a house, what did you know about running a house? Like I remember when we got to this house and you would say, and it would be in joking, but you'd be like, I don't know, I grew up in an apartment. And I'm like, yeah, but we got to do this, we got to do that. You even knowing there were certain things that I was just used to just kind of taking over and doing, and I shouldn't have. It should have been something where I stepped back and allowed you to kind of step up and do. But because I was used to seeing my mom just make things happen, I didn't know that I was stunting opportunities for you to do how you might have wanted to do things. Or then I ended up feeling overwhelmed a lot of the times. And I did it to myself a lot of the times. Like I've even told you when I talk to you sometimes, if I ask you something and you don't answer fast enough, then I just start doing stuff. And I act like you're supposed to be able to process something real fast and be like, okay, this is my plan. And then just start getting with it. And I'll be like, bet. And then, but that's not how it goes.
For anybody.
So yeah, those were the few check boxes, but I should have thought about like, do you take control of situations? Do you think your way through a lot of, is it second nature for you to just take over the situation and act? Because for me, I need something to go fast. And me not really understanding how you do that, it really made it where I felt like I was out here by myself and I really didn't have to be. But I also didn't know as a wife that like everybody talks to you about, your husband's leading you, your husband's leading you. But I feel like if you're not leading me fast enough, then I need to like get some stuff done. And that was a part of being a wife that I thought I had down pat. Because sometimes people say the wife is the manager of the house. So the husband can come home and do X, Y, and Z. But I'm not 1950s wife. And the husband I have isn't from the 50s either. So I was wanting new age husband, but I was operating like a 50s wife and trying to hurry up. And I was trying to manage, but I wanted somebody else to manage. Like when that joker, she was like, I want you to lead me, but I don't want you to lead me how you want to lead. I want you to lead me the way that I want to be led. That was what I missed as a wife.
What does that even mean?
Right. So it means lead me, but do it like only way I want it. So basically, be me faster than I am. But I learned that from having a mother who was a wife who had to manage everything. And so the wife I wanted to be and the wife that I've seen before, they were not the same. And I didn't know that I was so different from what I really wanted. If I think about all of the women in my life and the type of wife I saw in all of these different women, none of them looked the same. All of them had some good parts to it. But I think that was one of the things figuring out what I wanted to keep and what did I want to throw away from what I learned. And the same for in my choice of husband. And I think that if I would have thought about that beforehand, before thinking about loving somebody, like most people, they're all in love and then you think because you're in love, then this is supposed to be your husband. or your wife. But sometimes all of that giddiness and everything feeling good, it doesn't translate into real life. Once you start pulling all of your expectations in and then you start measuring it up to the person you have and who they intend to be. Because who you may want to be as a husband doesn't match what I want as a husband,
How do you
and vice
find
versa.
how do you know that though? You got to do that in the beginning then.
You do. And in my conversation with my nephew, I was saying to him, I said, hey, so what kind of, he was telling me, listing off all the things he wanted his wife to be. And I said, well, what kind of husband do you want to be? And he was like, and I was like, yeah. I said, so you know what you want from her, but what are you going to provide to her? So one of the things I asked him was, when you think about, because he loves his mama, which I love when somebody loves their mama, but he loves his mom. And I said, when you think about your mom and how much you love her, what were some things that you might have wished a man would bring into her life? What would you have wanted her to have? Because that's who you love the most, right? That's a woman you love the most. You want her to be happy, like unconditionally love her. So when you're watching her growing up, what kind of man would you have felt would have been a perfect person to love your mom the way you felt she deserved it?
That's a great way of trying to become something that you thought your mother deserved.
Yeah. And not that, he's a very different person. I don't know if his mom would be the kind of woman he would want, but when you think of the woman that you love the most and what you want from her, you want the best for her. So then that in turn gives you a list of things that you might feel would be the best for someone else. So, and it's interesting in asking him that because I had thought about it myself and I was like, okay, Kanika, but I didn't say what kind of woman would I have wanted my dad to have. I said, what kind of woman would I want my brothers to have? Now, I didn't tell my nephew, what kind of man do you want your sister to have? But I guess that's a good question too, because you love your sister and you want somebody to love your sister, right? But the mama hits different. But the dad thing didn't hit for me like that. For me, it was, what kind of woman would I feel would be the best fit to love my brothers correctly? And I don't know if it's correctly, but in a way that made them feel, in a way where I feel like they deserve to be loved because I love them so much. I don't know if I'm that woman exactly.
What do you mean that question? You don't believe you're that? What woman?
I don't know if I'm that woman that I would want for my brothers. I mean, my intentions for you and my one, I guess I would, because the things I want for you, I would want someone to want it for him, for them too. And knowing how silly my brothers are and knowing how loving they are, I would want them to have somebody who's lighthearted. Even though I did say in another episode I am mean, but I'm also very enjoyable. But for real, I don't know. Do you feel like you're the kind of man you would want for your mom or your sister?
Now I am. But even before, I thought I was because I felt like I was doing everything I could to make you happy. I didn't know I could improve, but now that's why I said like when I got on this journey, I was like, if my daughter is going to be attracted to me, I have to remove my bad habits because if I don't remove them, she may be attracted to them, and she'll be able to attract the riffraff that have those habits.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to not have particular habits so that I could recognize, like what it looks like, if that makes sense. Like watching Day, like, I'm not gonna lie, I think that they didn't like the way that I treated you or something because both of them were up in the air as far as relationships. Like I think as time went on, they was like more open to it, but it was just like,
I don't know about that.
no.
Yeah, well, and they do say girls look for their father. They do. So I appreciate you being more of the man that you would want your daughter to look for too.
Oh, well, I don't want her to look for anybody. I want her to be able to attract the energy that wants to make sure that she's treated the way that she deserves.
I like that.
Her looking for anything, she can, but I think it's kind of a waste of time because she needs, like, I feel like men need to be mature. The man that she's looking for needs to be mature, and she can't find that one. A mature person's going to have to find her because maturity looks different, but to want to enter something like a relationship to marriage, it's going to take a different exposure that says that I want this because I'm going to experience something that You know, I haven't never seen my family or, you know, the people around me have never pushed this idea before. And I want a part of that. And I feel like Day in Dallas knows that it's true because they see us interact every day. So to me, I feel like they know it can happen, but I think deep down they know that it's going to take some work too. I don't know how much work they think it takes, but they're going to have to convince their partner that, well, Day is more than Dallas. Is going to have to convince her partner that they're going to have to like, or he's going to have to like put in more work. You know, like I told you in the beginning of all of this, I used to like think that you would take advantage of my time.
Yeah,
No, that's what I'm saying. Like that I didn't it was like you got your time, I got my time. But for some reason you messed up your time. Now I need to do this. But I was thinking selfishly. And that's the immaturity part I was saying. Like I'm willing to do whatever I need to, but if it's coming out of my time or it's inconveniencing me, I could get an attitude. I'ma still do it, but who wants somebody to do something for them if they gonna act like that?
and that was one of the things that should have been a primary concern for me, but it ended up being
Well, I'm glad it went
secondary
that way
to
because I don't know if you would have been able to say it for me to be able to mature. And maybe you would have. Maybe you would have wrote it down and then I had to read it 1,000 times.
For real, when I used to write you stuff, would you read it more than once?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I used to be one. I used to like want to answer it, but when I first read it, it was like I'm ready to like, yep. And then I'm like, yeah. But I mean, those were the best then because it was more so like it didn't amp me up to the point where I wanted to fight, but I started out that way and it just went down. Like, what am I doing? Why am I so?
Anyway,
So you think him being open minded to wanting to be in a relationship like that? Do you think a man that's that open minded could attract the energy of a woman that would want that? Because you know, more and more when I say a man controls everything as far as putting in the effort, I don't want him to run into a woman that is not doesn't deserve his effort.
I agree.
You know, and I do believe that you can find the right person or somebody close enough where they can compliment you. But if you attract the wrong person, you could be putting some effort into somebody who has no idea your vision of what a relationship is supposed to look like or feel like.
Well, we didn't get to that part. We ended at I need you to be able to define who you would be. Like, let's not talk about who, blah, blah, blah. So I guess that's my next conversation with him is to pick up from there and ask those questions.
Yeah. I just hope not just our nephew, but any and everybody, young adults, anybody looking into trying to like be in a relationship, know that it's very important that you ask enough questions to your partner or potential partner. Like just because their appearance or they got money or you like the way they dress, you could be setting yourself up for a difficult experience that will make you a different person and you'll start looking at relationships differently and then you'll find a lot of people who are not good in it talk about it and you'll get that energy and what I don't want people to continue to feed that. I want to be able to like meet more people that pro relationship because I don't plan on dying anytime soon, God willing. She doesn't plan on dying anytime soon. And we can enjoy like life together. To me, I like look forward to new experiences. Before I got to this point, I knew we were gonna have experiences, but I didn't know that I could like enjoy you every day. It was on like I knew that we interacted every day, but being around each other as much as we are, like it's like to me, it's a part of my routine. The only way you can't be around me is if you're out of town or vice versa. But I feel like my day to day interaction has to be filled with engagement. It's not just we're in the same room and how was your day? How was your day? Like it would make me feel like remember when I was like, we don't talk anymore. He's like, we do talk. But now it would be extreme now because
Yeah.
we didn't even talk like
No.
nowhere near like we talk now. So it would be like something's wrong in the house. But yeah, but I think it couldn't even get there because like the other day you said to me, and I know it was getting a little longer than when I anticipated, but you said, I'm feeling like
Why you make me sound like that?
I'm
Yeah.
feeling like you're not being honest with me and I think something's wrong with you.
I did. Because he was just dry. I don't like that.
I think I was just tired, and I was just like, I think certain things, experiences at school, kind of got the best of me, and I was just like, why is this bothering me? So my face and my interaction with her was limited because I was still processing like how I'm supposed to be feeling, and it wasn't like me going back and forth with her, but it was so crazy. She said, I'm going to ask you something and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. And I was like, but see, that's awesome though, because there was really nothing wrong between she and I, but she just wanted to make sure because we really do have good times. But anybody want to give a shout out before we get out of here? Because this is the second to last show.
No, as per usual.
Okay. Well, I want to give a shout out to the class of 2025, high school, college, universities, trade schools, anybody who's graduating to enter something to open up another opportunity for growth and accomplishment. I'm congratulating you guys with everything you put in, and hopefully your next door gets even bigger from the work you put in. Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. GATA. Get after that action, or that action will get after you. Be great on purpose.